Amara Okoye was still staring at the invitation when the office lights went off one by one. An exclusive evening dinner. 5-star restaurant in Victoria Island. Dress code elegant. At the bottom, in bold, her boss Victor Adeyemi had added, "All senior staff must attend. Bring your family. We celebrate unity." That word, must, made her stomach tighten. At home, her parents were excited. Her mother smiled proudly while choosing what to wear. Her father kept nodding, telling neighbors, "Our daughter works with big people now." Her elder brother, Chibuzo, teased her, half joking, half doubting. "So this boss of yours is really that powerful?" Amara just smiled. She had learned long ago that explaining herself never changed much. The restaurant was even more intimidating than she imagined. Crystal lights. Soft music. Men in tailored suits and women glowing with confidence. Investors, executives, people whose names carried weight in Lagos. Amara felt small walking in with her family, like she had stepped into someone else's world. Then Victor appeared. His smile was wide, too wide, like it was stretched on purpose. He shook her father's hand warmly, laughed with her mother, clapped Chibuzo on the back. "This is the family of our star analyst," he said loudly. Heads turned. Eyes measured her. As they were shown to their table, Victor gently pulled out the chair closest to him. "Amara, sit here," he said, his voice smooth. "You should be near me tonight." She sat down slowly, her heart beating faster. The table was perfect. The smiles were polished. But deep inside, Amara felt it clearly. This dinner wasn't a celebration. It was a setup. The starters arrived in quiet elegance, small plates, carefully arranged, too beautiful to touch. Soft music played in the background, and glasses clinked as people settled into their seats. Just as Amara reached for her water, Victor stood up, tapping his glass with a fork. "Let's have a toast," he said, his voice loud and confident. The room slowly went quiet. Heads turned toward him. Amara felt her shoulders stiffen. Victor smiled broadly. "Tonight is about unity," he began. "About teamwork. About how, when we work together, great things happen." People nodded. A few investors raised their glasses already. Amara relaxed just a little. Then Victor turned his body slightly toward her. "And of course," he continued, "we must mention some individuals who have benefited greatly from this teamwork." Amara felt her name coming before he even said it. "Amara," Victor said, smiling at her like a proud teacher. "A perfect example." Some people clapped lightly. "She joined us young," he said, quiet, respectful, very obedient. A few laughs slipped out. "And look how far she has gone." Sometimes in life, luck smiles on you. Sometimes connections open doors for you. More laughter now. Louder. Amara's fingers tightened around her napkin. Victor raised his glass higher. "Not everyone needs talent," he joked. "Some people just know how to stay in line." The laughter spread across the room like a wave. Amara's face burned. Her ears rang. She looked down at the table, hoping the floor would open and swallow her. She waited, just one voice, one person, to say something. To stop it. She glanced at her family. Her father smiled stiffly, not fully understanding but not questioning either. Her brother Chibuzo laughed openly, shaking his head as if it was all harmless fun. Her mother leaned closer to her and whispered softly, "Just laugh. Don't embarrass us." That hurt more than Victor's words. Amara forced a small smile and lifted her glass with everyone else. Her hand was shaking. Inside her chest, something heavy settled. This wasn't praise. This wasn't a joke. This was a warning, delivered in front of powerful people, wrapped in laughter. Victor went on, enjoying the moment. "We are proud of you, Amara," he said. "Very proud. Just remember, you are where you are because this company believes in you." More applause. More laughter. Amara nodded slowly, like someone underwater. Her mind raced, but her body felt frozen. She had worked late nights, missed birthdays, solved problems no one else could solve. And this was how it was presented, as luck, as obedience, as something she didn't earn. She swallowed hard and finally looked up. Victor was still smiling. The room had already decided it was funny, and her silence, to them, looked like agreement. Victor wasn't done. After the laughter from his toast died down, he leaned back in his chair, grinning as if the night had only just begun. "You know," he said loudly, waving his fork, "our dear Amara here is one of the highest-paid analysts in the company. Imagine that. She makes almost as much as some of our managers." The table chuckled. Some raised their eyebrows, impressed. Others smirked, as if it were funny that someone like her could earn that much. Amara's throat tightened. Victor wasn't sharing praise. He was putting a target on her back. "But don't get too comfortable, my dear," Victor continued, turning his gaze directly at her. "This company moves fast. People come, people go. No one is irreplaceable." A few people laughed again, trying to read his tone. Amara forced another small smile, but her hands were trembling under the table. She could feel her mother's hand brush her arm as if to calm her, but the gesture only made her feel smaller. Victor's voice grew louder. "You see, Amara here always has that serious face. Even when she's praised, She looks like she's solving the world's problem. That's when Chibuzzo, her brother, laughed so hard the table turned to look. She's always been like that, he said. At home too. You should see her when she argues. So dramatic. The room erupted with laughter again. Amara's heart dropped. It was one thing for Victor to humiliate her, but hearing her own brother join in, the same brother she once helped pay university fees for, was unbearable. She turned slightly toward him, her face calm but her eyes full of disbelief. Chibuzzo avoided her gaze, still smiling, still performing for the people at the table. He wanted to fit in. They all did. Her father chuckled softly, trying not to look awkward. Her mother whispered again, "It's just jokes, my child. Don't take it to heart." But Amara knew these weren't jokes. They were weapons dressed as humor. Every word was meant to cut her down while keeping him looking charming. Victor tapped his glass again. "See, even her family agrees. You must be tough to live with, Amara. Always serious, always correcting people, eh?" More laughter. Inside, Amara felt something shift. The embarrassment began to turn into clarity. She realized it wasn't about her personality or her work. It was about control. Victor wanted everyone to see that no matter how good she was, he could still reduce her to nothing with a few sentences. And her family, desperate not to make a scene, was helping him do it. Amara sat back, staring at the flickering candlelight in the center of the table. Every laugh echoed like a slap. Every smile from her family felt like betrayal. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just breathed slowly and let the humiliation settle into a quiet, steady fire inside her chest. That was the moment she knew. This dinner wasn't about celebration. It was a test of power, and she was done letting them win. The laughter slowly faded, but the damage had already been done. The table returned to eating, forks scraping plates, glasses refilled. Everyone expected Amara to react, to defend herself, to look angry, or maybe to cry. She did none of that. Instead, she lifted her head and smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just a calm, gentle one, the kind that confused people more than tears ever could. Her breathing slowed. Her shoulders relaxed. If anyone was watching closely, they might have thought she had accepted everything. Victor noticed it too. He leaned back in his chair, clearly pleased. To him, that smile meant surrender. It meant she knew her place. He nodded to himself and kept talking, enjoying the attention. "You know," Victor said, swirling the drink in his glass, "this company didn't become what it is by accident. It takes vision, leadership, someone who can carry the weight of big decisions." He tapped his chest lightly. "That responsibility has always been mine." People nodded. A few investors leaned in, listening closely. Amara reached for her phone under the table. Her screen lit up softly. Her fingers moved without shaking now. She typed a short message, precise and calm, and pressed send. No one noticed. To them, she was just another guest checking her phone at dinner. But that message mattered. It was something she had prepared months ago, just in case. Back when late nights and small warnings in Victor's behavior told her that one day, she might need protection. She never imagined she would activate it like this, in public, surrounded by crystal glasses and quiet music. Victor continued boasting. "Every successful system we use today exists because I pushed for it," he said confidently. "I took the risks. I made the calls when others hesitated." Amara nodded politely, still smiling. Her family relaxed, thinking the worst was over. Her mother finally took a full bite of her food. Her father laughed at something someone else said. They believed Amara had decided to stay quiet for peace. Victor mistook her silence for obedience. He leaned closer to one of the investors. "Some people are good workers," he said loudly. "But leadership? That's different. That's something you're born with." Amara glanced at her phone again. A small confirmation appeared on the screen. Done. Her heart didn't race. Instead, she felt strangely light. The plan was active now. No drama. No announcement. Just a quiet step forward. She placed her phone face down and folded her hands in her lap. Victor kept talking, growing bolder with every sentence. He had no idea that while he was claiming ownership of the company's success, the ground under him had already started to shift. Amara took a slow sip of water, still smiling softly. They thought her calm meant weakness. They had no idea it was control. As Victor's voice filled the room, Amara barely heard him anymore. Her smile stayed in place, but her mind drifted far from the table, back to the beginning, back to the work no one ever saw. She remembered her first year at the company. Small desk, old computer, long nights when the office cleaners were the only ones left with. The company had been bleeding money then, taking risks they didn't understand. Amara had seen the danger clearly. She had built models on her own time, testing numbers again and again, finding patterns others missed. That system everyone praised today, the risk analysis software, had been born in those quiet nights. She remembered walking into Victor's office with printed pages in her hands, nervous but hopeful. "This can protect the company," she had said. but we need to slow down and follow the rules carefully. Victor had barely looked up. Just send me the files, he replied. Weeks later, he presented her work as his vision. Her name never appeared. When she tried to speak, he smiled and said, "Let's not confuse the board with too many voices." After that, it became normal. Every warning she gave was ignored until it came true. Every success was claimed by him. In meetings, he called her helpful and supportive, never brilliant, never essential. Over time, he trained everyone to see her as background noise. But what Victor never bothered to understand was that Amara planned ahead. On the advice of a mentor, she had quietly registered the software under a small consultancy. A simple legal step. Nothing dramatic. Just protection. The system was hers. Legally, clearly, completely. Victor knew this, but believed she would never challenge him. He counted on her silence. The flashback shifted. She remembered the warning emails she sent. Careful, professional, document. She remembered Victor replying, "Don't worry. I'll handle it." She remembered watching him take bigger risks, chasing praise, while she kept notes, saved files, and followed the law. Tonight's dinner suddenly made sense. This wasn't just humiliation. It was insurance. Victor wanted witnesses. He wanted her family there, watching her shrink. He wanted to show investors that she was small, lucky, replaceable. Someone who would never fight back. He wanted to seal her silence in front of everyone. Amara's smile deepened slightly, though no one noticed. Under the table, her hands rested calmly in her lap. The truth sat there with her, quiet, patient, waiting. Every document, every contract, every email chain, all of it existed, untouched, ready. Victor laughed loudly at something he said about leadership. The room laughed with him. Amara breathed in slowly. This dinner wasn't ending the way he planned, because the thing Victor underestimated the most wasn't her talent. It was her memory and her preparation. The main course plates were being cleared when Amara finally spoke. Her voice was soft, almost casual, like she was asking about the weather. "Victor," she said, smiling politely. "Quick question." He turned toward her, still enjoying the attention. "Yes, Amara?" She tilted her head slightly. "The risk analysis system update scheduled for midnight tonight," she said. "Are we still pushing it live without the compliance delay?" Victor didn't hesitate. He laughed lightly, confident. "Of course," he said. "Everything is cleared. The update will run automatically at 12. No issues." Amara nodded slowly. Then she spoke again, just as calmly. "That's not correct." The words landed gently, but they landed. Victor blinked. "What do you mean?" Amara kept her tone respectful. "The update can't run automatically. The compliance lock activates at 11:45 p.m. unless the secondary approval key is applied. Without that, the system freezes." A pause followed. People at the table stopped chewing. At a nearby table, an investor leaned slightly closer, pretending not to listen. Victor laughed, a bit too quickly. "Ah, details," he said, waving his hand. "Technical stuff. The team handles that." Amara didn't argue. She simply continued. "The team can't override it," she said. "The lock was designed to prevent unauthorized risk exposure. You approved that structure yourself. At least, you approved my recommendation." Silence crept in. Victor's smile tightened. "Well," he said, clearing his throat, "that's why we have smart people like you, right?" Amara nodded. "Exactly. That's also why the ownership clauses exist." Victor stiffened. "What clauses?" She leaned back slightly, still smiling. "Clause 14b in the consultancy agreement," she said. "It states that if intellectual property is presented publicly under false ownership, control automatically shifts back to the registered architect once proof is submitted." A few heads turned fully now. One investor openly faced their table. Another whispered something to the person beside him. Victor chuckled nervously. "You've always been very thorough," he said. Amara met his eyes for the first time that night. "I had to be," she replied. "Because the same clause also applies if warnings are ignored and losses occur." The air felt heavier. Even the music seemed quieter. Victor reached for his drink, then paused. His confidence slipped for just a second. Amara added gently, "I sent the compliance notice this afternoon. It timestamps everything. No anger. No threat. Just facts." Dessert menus arrived at the table, untouched. Around them, people were no longer pretending not to listen. The laughter was gone. The mood had shifted. A small crack had appeared, and Victor could feel it. A waiter approached the table with a small smile. "Sir," he said to Victor, "we're ready to display the dessert selection whenever you like." Victor nodded quickly, eager to move on. Yes. "Let's show it," he said, forcing a laugh. Amara stood up. The movement was so calm, so unexpected, that everyone froze for a second. "Actually," she said politely, "may I use the screen first?" Just for a moment. Victor opened his mouth to object, then closed it again. Too many eyes were already watching. Amara connected her phone to the restaurant's presentation screen. The soft background music faded as the screen lit up. Instead of chocolate cakes and fruit tarts, a document appeared. A contract. Clear. Official. With dates, signatures, and a registered consultancy name at the top. The room went completely silent. Amara spoke gently. This is the legal registration of the company's risk analysis system, she said. Filed 3 years ago. She tapped her phone. The screen changed. Emails appeared. Long threads. Timestamp late at night. Warnings. Recommendations. Follow-ups that were never answered. Victor's replies sat there in plain sight. Short. Dismissive. Careless. Someone at a nearby table whispered, "Oh my God." Victor's face drained of color. His confident posture collapsed slightly as he stared at the screen like it was betraying him. Amara tapped again. The IP registration filled the screen, bold and undeniable. Her name was there. Not hidden. Not small. Amara Okoye. Her mother covered her mouth. Her father leaned forward, squinting, as if trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Chibuzo's smile vanished completely. He looked at his sister like he was seeing her for the first time. This isn't luck, Amara said calmly. This is work. The silence grew heavier. Amara continued, her voice steady. These emails show where I warned about compliance risks. These documents show where ownership was ignored. And this registration shows who legally built the system. Chairs shifted. Glasses were set down untouched. At the far end of the room, one of the senior investors slowly stood up. He didn't say a word. He simply stepped aside and made a phone call, his face serious. Victor finally found his voice. This is inappropriate, he stammered. This is a private matter. Amara looked at him kindly. You made it public tonight. Her family sat frozen. The truth hit them all at once. She hadn't been lucky. She hadn't been obedient. She had been used. Whispers spread through the room like fire. People leaned toward each other, eyes locked on the screen. The dessert menu was forgotten. What was being served now was something much hotter. Truth. And everyone was tasting it. The room was still buzzing with quiet whispers when Victor's phone vibrated on the table. At first, he ignored it, trying to regain control. He cleared his throat and reached for his water, but the glass shook in his hand. The phone vibrated again, this time louder. He glanced at the screen. His face changed. The color drained completely, like someone had pulled the life out of him. His eyes moved quickly as he read the message, once, twice. His accounts had been frozen. Pending investigation. Victor let out a small laugh that didn't sound human. There must be some mistake, he said, more to himself than anyone else. Across the room, the senior investor who had made the phone call earlier walked back to the table. His posture was calm, his voice steady. When he spoke, everyone listened. Miss Okoye, he said, looking directly at Amara. Thank you for your professionalism tonight. The way he said her name, clear, respectful, shifted the air. You are clearly the real mind behind the company's most valuable system, he continued. And you handled this with dignity. Amara stood still, her hands folded. Thank you, she replied quietly. Victor opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked around for support. The assistants who usually rushed to his side were suddenly busy. One staff member avoided eye contact. Another pretended not to hear him call their name. Phones stayed unanswered. Power was moving, and everyone could feel it. Victor tried to stand, but his chair scraped loudly against the floor, drawing unwanted attention. Let's all calm down, he said weakly. This can be discussed privately. No one responded. People were no longer looking at him. They were looking at Amara. Her mother's hands began to tremble. Tears filled her eyes, not from fear, not from sadness for Victor, but from realization. She looked at her daughter, truly looked at her, and her face crumpled. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice breaking. Amara turned slightly toward her, offering a gentle nod. No anger, no blame. Chibuzo stared at the table, unable to lift his head. His earlier laughter felt heavy now, like it belonged to someone else. The investor continued. We will be reviewing everything immediately. Until then, Mr. Adeyemi, you are advised not to make any further decisions. Victor sank back into his chair. Dessert plates arrived quietly, placed on the table like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The humiliation had moved. Victor sat frozen, surrounded by people who no longer feared him. Amara sat calmly, respected, seen. For the first time that night, silence worked in her favor. And it was louder than any laugh Victor had used against her. Outside the restaurant, the night air felt cooler, quieter. The noise and lights inside faded behind the heavy glass door. Cars passed by on the road, and the city moved on like nothing extraordinary had happened. Amara stopped near the entrance, waiting while her family caught up to her. Her mother was the first to speak. Her eyes were red, her voice unsteady. Amara, my daughter. I didn't know, she said. If I had known. Amara didn't interrupt. She just listened. Her father cleared his throat, his shoulders slumped. We doubted you, he admitted slowly, because you never talked about your work. You never showed off. We thought maybe you were just lucky. The word stung, but Amara didn't show it. Chibuzo stood a few steps away, staring at the pavement. His hands were in his pockets. He didn't look up. I shouldn't have laughed, he said quietly. I was trying to fit in. Amara nodded once. I know. There was a long pause, the kind that forces truth into the open. You believed the loudest voice, Amara said calmly. Not the truthful one. No anger. No raised voice. Just honesty. Her mother began to cry again, covering her face. Her father reached for her hand, both of them realizing what their silence had cost their daughter over the years. Amara took a step back. I didn't need defending tonight, she continued gently. I needed trust. They had no answer for that. She picked up her bag and adjusted it on her shoulder. For the first time in hours, her chest felt light. The shame, the fear, the need to prove herself, it all stayed behind those glass doors. I'm going home, she said. Her parents nodded slowly. Chibuzo finally looked up, but she was already turning away. As Amara walked down the steps alone, her heels clicked softly against the pavement. She felt tired, but free. Not because she had won, but because she had finally chosen herself. Behind her, her family stood in silence, understanding too late. Ahead of her, the road felt open, and for the first time, she didn't feel the need to explain anything to anyone. A few days later, Amara received calls from several investors who had attended the dinner. They praised her calm, her clarity, and the way she handled the situation. Some offered her a leadership role in a new venture, high profile, high pay, with the kind of power most people would dream of. Amara listened politely. She thanked them, asked questions, but when the moment came to answer, she shook her head with a soft smile. I appreciate the offer, she said, but I've learned that independence matters more to me than titles or money. I want to build on my own terms. The investors were impressed by her decision. Respect grew in their eyes, not just for her intelligence, but for her courage to choose herself. News of the dinner spread quickly through Lagos business circles. Social media buzzed with people sharing the story. How a young analyst had faced her boss, stayed calm under public humiliation, and turned the tables using nothing but preparation, patience, and intelligence. Colleagues messaged her. Mentors praised her. Even strangers admired her poise. Amara read through the messages, letting a quiet satisfaction settle inside her. She hadn't needed to shout, to fight with words, or to prove herself in public. Her actions had spoken louder than any insult. And in the end, that was enough. They laughed while she was silent. They doubted her, underestimated her, and humiliated her. But before dessert even arrived, the balance had shifted. And she had shown everyone the truth. Because silence was never weakness.